teams' scoring defenses are identical, 18.3 points per game given up. They're tied for sixth in the league. Neither team can really run the ball very well. Both teams are under 100 yards rushing per game. The Texans a little bit better at 90 yards per game, 91, and Tampa Bay at 77. Both teams don't turn the ball over a lot, right? The Houston Texans, only 4 turnovers on offense, which is crazy with their rookie quarterback. And your Tampa Bay Buccaneers only have 6 turnovers on offense. So this is going to be, I think, a low-scoring defensive struggle. For the Buccaneers, think that Bucs-Falcons game a couple weeks ago, 16-13. For the Houston Texans, think last week, a 15-13 loss at Carolina against the Panthers. So a rock'em sock'em defensive struggle. I think the team that finds the end zone the most, either once or twice, probably wins this game.
Yeah, to that point, for all the Bucs games so far this season, the under has hit in all but one of those Bucs games this season. The only one that went over was against the Bears, which, again, the under was well on its way until Shaq Barrett, thankfully for all Bucs fans, had that pick six, which hit the over. So that's a little wink and a nod for where I may be going this week.
Yeah,
on my Pewter picks and props. But yeah, Scott, you're right. I mean, talent-wise, I still think you got to give it to the Bucs a little bit, especially on the offensive side of the football, but also 2 defensive coaches with Todd Bowles and D'Amico Ryan. So, and that's the one thing about the NFL that is great is that we talk about parity in the league and anybody can beat anybody, and you see it week in and week out. I mean, the Texans just lost to the Carolina Panthers last week to give the Panthers their first win of the season. But besides that, just looking at the Texans, that was a game initially you go, oh, all right, the Bucs should win this game. And you're trying to, the over-under is 6 wins for the Bucs this season. The Texans, that's a win. Not so much anymore, especially with the Bucs on a 3-game losing streak. That's very much is not the case. So Bucs are going to have, I mean, it's without question they're going to have to play better. But offensively, they're going to have to bring it, or else it could be 4 losses in a row.
Yeah, and I think, too, to your point, Matt, you look at D'Amico Ryan's, what he said last week in that loss was it came down to turnovers. Yeah. Really, actually turnover. The Panthers got 1 takeaway in that game. That was enough to decide that 15-13 victory for the Panthers. Houston turned the ball over 1 time. Carolina did not, and it ended up costing the Texans. And the Texans are, again, the best team in the league at avoiding turnovers. You look at C.J. Stroud, the rookie quarterback. He's easily been the best rookie, or maybe we can't say that with Will Levis now being 1-0 after his dismantling of the Falcons last weekend. Or maybe it was just the Houston Oilers jerseys, Maybe it was the jerseys that gave him some mojo, right?
The
Love You Blue
part of it, the Houston part of it.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it was that did it. But when you look at C.J. Stroud, man, he's 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's outplayed Bryce Young. Maybe he's got a little bit better of surrounding talent when you look at the weapons he has. There's not a lot to this Texans offense, right? They've got kind of a 2-headed monster with Dameon Pierce, right? Who is well known in these parts, being a former Florida Gator, angry runner. Devin Singletary, who spent some years in Buffalo. That's kind of their 1-2 punch on the ground. And then you look at the wide receivers right now. Robert Woods dealing with an injury. He's probably on the downside of his career, but they got a couple of interesting players. Really 2 completely different body types. You look at Nico Collins, 6'4", 215. You think Mike Evans, right, in terms of his body type. And then you got little Tank Dell, who we both liked coming out of the University of Houston, Houston Cougars, teammate of Logan Hall. We liked him at the Senior Bowl, right? This guy's undersized, quick, explosive. Think Devin Tompkins, 5'8", maybe, 160 pounds, maybe. But he's that type of player. And both he and Collins, even though there's such a huge disparity in their playing size and playing style, with one being really big and physical, the other one being quick and fast, these guys can make some plays down the field for C.J. Stroud. And that's something Tampa Bay has done a decent job of, not letting the ball get over the secondary's heads. They play a lot of this kind of maddening soft zone coverage, and we'll talk about this more, Matt. But you look at Nico Collins, a 17.5-yard receiving average. That's in the realm of Mike Evans, 577 yards, 3 touchdowns. So he's kind of their Mike Evans.
Yeah.
And then Tank Dell, he's no Chris Godwin, but like I said, he's more like Devin Tompkins, but still 15.5 yards per catch. Very quick, very fast player, 22 catches for 340 yards. So C.J. Stroud's got a couple of guys to work with.
Yeah, shout out to Nico Collins, because no one across the league is talking about him. He's in his 3rd year coming out of Michigan, and those 577 receiving yards, that's more than Mike Evans. And they've played the same number of games because the Texans had a bye as well. So on the same level playing field of Mike Evans, stat-wise, Mike has some more touchdowns. Talent-wise, obviously the nod still goes to Mike Evans. But and you got to give the Texans some credit. I mean, obviously different coaching staffs, different regimes and stuff like that. But this is the second time now where the Texans have drafted a quarterback. The first one was Deshaun Watson. We all know what happened with Deshaun Watson. But in terms of drafting a quarterback and then developing that QB, and C.J. Stroud still has so much to go in his career, but off to a very promising start. That's very difficult to do it for any franchise. The Bucs are still looking to do that, to develop their first round pick quarterback. They haven't done that just yet in their career. But to have weapons like Nico Collins and Tank Dell, like you just talked about, even Dalton Schultz, the former Dallas Cowboy, now staying in Texas but going to Houston at tight end, he's got around, I want to say 220 receiving yards or whatever it is. So, they're getting production from a number of different places. Yeah, their running game could be a lot better. But they're getting the production in different spots where the Bucs haven't necessarily gotten that just yet. They are getting it, obviously, with Mike and Chris, but a no-show with the tight ends, relatively a no-show with the rest of their wide receivers. So credit to the Texans, surprising a ton of people this season. But we got a couple of super chats to get to. Thank you to Vise for this $10 super chat. Vise had a couple of comments, so we will go through them. If I start out with, we're going to get walked again, followed by, even if they did win, it wouldn't matter since it's halfway through the season and they play with zero consistency and at least no consistency on offense. Well, that's true on the offensive side. There really hasn't been, honestly, I know the bye week came at a good time because the Bucs were ravaged by injury. Yeah. But the offense was not humming by any means, but the offense was getting the job done. And then the bye week hit, and then for whatever reason, the offense is just vanished in terms of production and consistency. So
that's a great point, man. I'll stop you right there. 20 points against the Vikings on offense, 20 points against the Bears on offense, because the Shaq Barrett touchdown, pushed that to 27 points, which is their highest scoring output of the year as a team. Then the next week, 26 points on offense against the New Orleans Saints. And all 3 of those touchdowns the Bucs scored came not just in the red zone, but within the 5-yard line, right? I mean, a lot of short passes from Baker Mayfield to Cade Otton, to Devin Tompkins, to Trey Palmer. And you're right. Ever since then, I mean, it's been 6 points, 13 points, 18 points. Maybe they're trending the right direction, slowly getting back to 20 points. But it feels like they got to score 20 points this week to win.
It absolutely does, because on top of that, what you talked about, why the Bucs beat the Vikings in week 1, they won that turnover battle 3-0. Well, you know what? They won the turnover battle against the Buffalo Bills, and what did it do for them? Essentially nothing. I mean, it got them points on that drive when they got the turnover from the Will Golston interception, but they're winning the turnover battles now a couple of times. They won the turnover battle against the Atlanta Falcons. Still ended up on a loss. That's right. In the loss column for them. So now just winning the turnover battle, at least in the past couple of weeks, and I think at the end of the day, after 17 games, if you look at the odds of every time they won the turnover battle versus they lost it, the odds are still going to be in your favor that if you win the turnover battle, you're going to win the game. Yeah.
But it's not automatic.
It's not an automatic, and not every turnover is the same. Antoine Winfield Jr. forcing the fumble on Desmond Ridder, who's now been benched, by the way. That saved the Bucs from allowing more points versus you got the turnover, and now you're in the scoring position on the other side of the field
Right.
against your opponent, which was the case against Buffalo. So at one point or another, and this would be a good week to start it, the offense has to pick it up. I mean, the Bucs defense, God bless them. Yeah, they have their struggles against the Bills, but how many times are they really playing with leads or in tie games? It's very few and far between, and it's not fair to their defense, but it's just kind of how it is right now for the Buccaneers. And we got a $4.99 super chat from a very familiar friend of the Pewter Report podcast in the comments, Mark Fisher, with a different name, well, similar name, but Revfish going by with this name. So thank you, Mark Fisher.
He's a reverend.
The, super chat. Yeah,
he's a reverend. So pastor.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Now I know. Awesome. Anyway, thank you, Mark. It says, "Hey guys, it's Mark Fisher. What is your take on Baker's deep ball so far? Good, bad, and do you see that as an option this week?" I think it'll be an option if the opportunity presents itself. Like, I don't think Baker's going to throw into double coverage just because it's Mike Evans. Now, the Bucs do take a couple. They're not the Bruce Arians offense by any means, but they do take shots down the field. We can point to the Lions game over and over and over. What do I think of his deep ball, though? Not the best. I mean, this goes back into training camp where we said Baker kept overthrowing people and Kyle Trask was overthrowing people as well.
Yeah.
He's got the strength to throw it deep. It's just the accuracy part of it.
There's sometimes he hasn't put enough touch on it, right? I think most of his deep shots, if they've been misses, have been overthrows rather than underthrows, and I think that's usually the better alternative, because if it's an underthrown ball, then you're more likely to throw an interception if that's the case. So but it's you're right, man. It's something we've seen going back to training camp where, I wouldn't say it's on par with how bad Jameis Winston was with the deep ball, but it's certainly not Tom Brady. It's kind of in between. And I think with Baker, he's better at those 20-yard air throws, right? Like we saw Mike Evans, right, against the Falcons, right? That's a kind of a 20-yard, 25-yard air shot, and then Evans runs the last 10, 15 yards into the end zone once he makes the catch. Those are the type of deep balls, because it was a 40, 41-yard touchdown from Evans in that instance.
Right.
I think the longer the ball's in the air, the less accurate that's going to be. And that's kind of universally, what you're looking at around the league with quarterbacks. The deeper the throw, the smaller the percentage of completing it. But at the same time, I think 20 to 25 yards Baker can hit those, generally speaking. It's those deep shots, those 40-yard passes in the air, like those misses to Trey Palmer in the Lions game, where his rangefinder just is not on sync with some of these Bucs receivers.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, too, that goes into having to gear up a little bit more just because he's on the smaller side, and he's got to make sure he gets around those, defensive tackles trying to knock down the football. And he just has to rev it up a little bit more. And that's why, a lot of the times it's been an overthrow. And you don't want the underthrow. Occasionally, you'll get benefited on an underthrow where the wide receiver has to stop and then the DB runs into the wide receiver and it's a pass interference. But, you can't bank on that every single time. I like this comment from Appreciable Assets LLC, who says, our QB3 is the most accurate on the roster. He's now part of the 53-man roster.
That's right.
So congrats to John Wolford. Yeah, that's a very funny 48 hours for John Wolford. And
he was in demand.
He was in high demand. So
the Vikings wanted him.
Yeah. There's a number of injuries around the NFL. Unfortunately, Kirk Cousins is out for the season with the Achilles injury, and Matt Stafford of the Rams sprained a PCL in his thumb. So, he was well wanted across the league. So the Bucs had to waive Pat O'Connor, the D lineman, and make room for John Wolford. It's actually Pat O'Connor's birthday today, so happy birthday, Pat! But he'll end up back on the practice squad. So
and I think the thing too is when you look at John Wolford and Matt, we saw back in OTAs when he first got here, there were days where John Wolford was actually the best quarterback in practice, just with less reps, right? OTAs, a couple training camp days where he's the one throwing touchdowns, not Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. So. Again, he has not done enough to lose his starting job.
Correct.
Right. But you know what? It's kind of put the Bucs in some no man's land, right? And I think when you look at Baker, and I wrote about this in the 2-point conversion, and it really wasn't a shot at Baker as it was mostly just telling the truth. When you look at what Baker has done this year, he's done a good job protecting the ball. He's thrown some touchdown passes. It just has not been enough to get the Buccaneers to 20 points or more on the regular. And so he's doing enough from an escapability standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, from a completion percentage standpoint, the touchdown interception ratio standpoint. He's done enough to stay in the lineup, because I don't think Kyle Trask would be any better when you look at the lack of experience, the lack of mobility, the escapability factor that Baker has, just kind of an uncanny knack of ducking sacks that he's done it multiple times now. But at the same time, you're looking at an offense that, again, in these last 3 weeks, 6 points, 13 points, 18 points, not enough. And then is it going to get any better? Are the Buccaneers going to go on a playoff run this year? And is Baker going to be the driving force of that? Because, Matt, we've talked about it before. It bears repeating. The Buccaneers have said, we're a pass-first team. Our offensive line is better in pass protection than run blocking. We're going to play to our strength. Our receivers, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, are our best weapons. Not Rachaad White, certainly not Keyshawn Vaughn. We're going to play to our strengths, which is the receivers. And what that does is that forces Baker Mayfield to have to throw the ball 45 times per game, which he's done the last two times. Actually thrown it 42 times, but there have been 45 called passes. He scrambled 3 times in each of those last 2 games. And the Buccaneers, respectively, have run the ball 17 times against the Falcons, 13 times against the Buffalo Bills on Thursday night. And so you're getting more lopsided play towards the passing game. Yeah. But Baker has not been up to the challenge in driving the offense through the passing game to put enough points on the board. So you're kind of in no man's land. It's like you have to throw the ball because that gives you the best chance to win. But Baker works so much better with the running game to play off of, because then you get to more play action stuff. And the 2020 Baker, as good as he was with the Browns, you had Nick Chubb. You had Kareem Hunt. You could run the ball. You had much more balance. And so looking long-term, unless he really turns into a prolific type quarterback, 300-yard passing games, getting back to that 3-to-1 touchdown ratio that we saw in New Orleans, is he the guy long-term if he can't drive the bus as fast as you need it to go?
Yeah, what we're learning is Baker is the type of quarterback, at least currently at the moment, where you need the other talent around so Baker can drive that bus and help you win the game. Right. You need stellar wide receivers. You need a great running game. You need a great defense. And he has that defense. He has the talent at wide receiver, but doesn't necessarily have it with the offensive line just yet, and doesn't have it clearly with the running game so far. So can Baker be a quarterback kind of like, Trent Dilfer was with the Ravens back in the day, or even Brad Johnson with the first, Bucs Super Bowl winning team? Yeah. I think he can be a quarterback that can help a team, or this Bucs team, make it to the playoffs. Right. But I think the best way to describe it is he's not going to be the guy that's going to win you games, or his performance is going to be on such another level where you have the confidence that Baker can do it.
For example, he's got to be the point guard, not the shooting guard. And right now they're asking him to be the shooting guard, like put up 30 points a night.
Like put it this way: if the Bucs are down 24-20, let's say, with under 2 minutes to go, it's pretty much your last chance having the football. I don't have a ton of confidence in Baker being the guy that's, all right, I'm going to drive this team 80 yards down the field, and we're going to score the game-winning touchdown and win this game. Yeah,
and certainly on the regular, he can do it, but like Tom Brady could do that on the regular. Can Baker Mayfield do that? Right. That's where we haven't seen enough yet to really make that determination.
Let's get to some more super chats, starting out with Richie P. Thank you, Richie, for the $5 super chat, who says, question on that Hail Mary, talking about the Thursday night game. It was pretty much a WWE battle royal. If Mike Evans would have thrown a cornerback into the field goal post, would that have been called kind of joking, but not? Well, Mike does tend to get a number of offensive pass interference.
That's true.
Called on him. Yeah, it's one of those things. You could argue, because some people are saying, well, Mike threw a cornerback down the same time that Kate Otten was getting tackled, and everything happened to Chris Godwin as well. it's very much the human element. You know, if this game was being played in Tampa Bay, would the Bucs have gotten the call then?
Right.
Possibly. There is a better opportunity for that.
Yeah.
I would just argue that the Bucs should have never been in that situation in the first place. They should have. They should have, not taken 17 plays in 7 minutes to make it a one possession game, and they should have got that stop on third down when they sent the blitz, where then they had to call out their timeouts and they only got the ball with 21 seconds. So it's kind of like the old adage, like, oh, you don't like when this home run hitter, dances or whatever when they hit a home run. Well, don't allow the home run in the first.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, poor Cade Otton, though. He literally got assaulted. This is a mugging. I mean, it's one thing, Chris Godwin, Terrell Bernard has his hand around Godwin's waist and kind of spun him around. And that's what caused Chris to, as he was trying to spin out of Terrell Bernard's grasp, caused him to lose track of the ball. And then it hits right next to him, unfortunately. But I mean, Cade Otton, it's like, he's supposed to get down there to the goal line and be the guy that's the jumper, right? He's supposed to kind of, if he can't just go up and catch the ball cleanly, he's got to tip the ball up to where you have, it's almost like in volleyball where you have your setter, right? He's kind of the setter, and then you got the spiker right there. You've got three levels. You have Evans on the back of the end zone, Godwin right there in the middle, and then Otton as that front jumper. And they all got to their spots perfectly. It's just they were getting mugged while doing it. So at the same time, though, the league's not going to call this. They should, but they're not going to. And I'd like to see a different rule for the Hail Mary, because what it's allowing the defense to do is to mug guys, and it's the advantage is such to the defense when that happens, right? Because what's the call going to be? Pass interference and the ball's on the 1 yard line. Then all of a sudden, it's a 45-yard play or 50-yard play, wherever the ball is being launched from. And now it's huge pendulum swing to the offense. They get one play at the 1 yard line, right? Yeah. And that almost feels too punitive a punishment there. I'd almost like to see on a last play of halftime and the game, the rules are different. And if there's defensive pass interference, it's like a
make it like college football, like 15 yards.
Yeah, 15 or 20-yard penalty to where it's enough, right? It's enough of like of a hindrance to where you don't want to do it. Like you don't want to just like hold on to people and take 15 yards and say, okay, now instead of a 50-yard Hail Mary, it's a 35, right? Because it's still advantage defense. But if you make it like a 20-yard penalty, now all of a sudden you're so much closer, and it just feels a little bit more even there. But something's got to be done, because the NFL is saying that play is completely different. We're going to call it completely different than every other play before that, and I think that's wrong.
And Cade Otton has a hard enough time getting open on his own.
You said it, Matt. Right on the money. Yeah.
All right, another super chat. Thank you to Pod Laughs Podcast. Thanks for the $4.99 super chat. They say, I'm tired of the Bucs passing on good running backs in the draft and free agency. Our defensive tackle is the best running back on the roster.
Talking about Vita Vea, who was a high school running back, and a damn good one coming out of California. That's Jason Light's blind spot. I mean, we can roll off the names in the draft, right? Charles Sims, Jeremy McNichols, Ronald Jones II, Keyshawn Vaughn, Rashad White. Yeah, not a lot of home runs there. It's not good. Like the running back position is kryptonite. And right behind it, too, is the tight end spot. You look at the tight ends, right? I mean, remember, Rob Gronkowski was acquired via trade. But you look at some like O.J. Howard, never really panned out, right? A first-round pick.
Yeah.
Payne Durham.
This is the O.J. Howard ball.
Yeah. I mean, Jason Light's first pick overall was a home run, right? Mike Evans. His second pick back in 2014, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, right? Who, got run out of Tampa because of his off the field issues. So they've not done a good job of drafting running back and tight end. And what are the two positions right now that I think are kind of holding back the offense? Running back and tight end. And right now, Rashad White, the receiver, is the de facto third receiver in Tampa Bay, because Cade Otton, like you said, Matt, can't get open. He's not a big contributor in the passing game. I think he's averaging 8 yards a catch now, which is down from last year when it was 9. which is a real pedestrian number. So they can't run the ball, partly, in fact, due to the tight ends, because they can't block. They don't have good running backs that can see holes once they're there. They don't have running backs that can create on their own and make a guy miss or break a tackle with any regularity to get to the second level. And, and again, by elimination of process of elimination, Rachaad White is the third wide receiver on this team now. And he can help out in the passing game, but he can't run the ball. So.
And he's doing pretty damn good the last 2 games. That's that wide receiver getting out in space. So kudos to Rachaad White for at least making himself valuable in one way or the other. But you talk about the tight ends. Yeah, I was about to say Cam Brate. He was a
undrafted free agent.
Yeah. So hopefully Sean Tucker becomes the Cam Brate of running backs for the Bucs in the running back room. How's Vita Vea doing this week? He practiced for the 2nd day in a row. He spoke to the media after. So looks like he's going to play this week, which obviously is a huge boost, especially considering the injuries at center for the Houston Texans. But speaking of a huge boost, if you need a huge boost, maybe you're a little tired during the day, you're feeling a little bit of sluggish, I got the perfect remedy for you. That would be a Celsius energy drink, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Cool thing, too, is like thinking, I just need to have a Celsius. Yeah, but there's so many different flavors to choose from that it's essentially carte blanche for you. You can go with the peach mango, the sparkling orange, the Arctic vibe, the sparkling strawberry acai, strawberry lemonade, whatever you want. So many great flavors, 0 sugar, no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you might get with another product out there. So if you need to know where to find a Celsius, go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and they'll tell you the closest geographical location where you can find one. It can be at your local Walmart, Target, 7-Eleven, health and fitness store, or your bodega. And once you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius, but you want more, you want to get it in bulk, you can get it in bulk. And I would highly recommend getting that variety pack, because variety is the spice of life. You just hop on over to Amazon, go online, do Amazon, the subscribe and save, and you can have it sent to your place of residence every week, month, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want. You're the captain now. You're the captain of the ship. Send it to your residence whenever you want. Just make Celsius your number one pick. Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com.
Let's kind of pick up where we left off there, talking about Vita Vea. And Matt, you mentioned it. The Texans are on essentially their 4th center this year. It's just kind of crazy. They had a big loss, a big injury in that Panthers game. They lost Jarrett Patterson, who was their center. And when you look at their depth chart and their injured reserve, Matt, I think we counted 13 players, right, on injured reserve for the Texans. And they've got Jarrett Patterson on injured reserve now, Kendrick Green, who is a guard center for them, and Juice Scruggs, who is a rookie at a Penn State, also an injured reserve from an earlier season injury. So Michael Dieter, who has played a little bit in this league, and we're just getting news now that Pat O'Connor has been re-signed to the practice squad.
He was at practice today. So.
Yeah, no surprise there. But Michael Dieter is essentially their 4th string center. He's their new guy there. And when I was talking with Shaq Barrett, he said their guards are pretty good. You know, Shaq Mason, former Buccaneer for a year, and Titus Howard, both their guards are good. Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, and George Fant at right tackle. They're both pretty solid, but this is where really Vita Vea's got to come back this week and feast. This is a brand new center in there, so there's going to be maybe some communication issues that the Bucs can exploit a little bit. Todd Bowles has got to find some ways to really put some stress on the center. Maybe it's an A-gap blitz with Devin White. Be nice to see a sack from him, but take advantage of that, because that appears to be the weakness right now. The Texans not good running the ball. We talked about that earlier, averaging 91 yards per game on the ground, very much like Tampa Bay. Matt, you look at Dameon Pierce, leading them with 327 yards, a pedestrian 3-yard average. Devin Singletary, a 3.7-yard average, 183 yards on the ground, but no runs from anybody over 17 yards. It's almost identical to what Tampa Bay is going through. So this is the game where you really need to, if you're Todd Bowles, come out aggressively, take away the run, force C.J. Stroud to beat you. That's easier said than done because Stroud has thrown 9 touchdowns, only 1 interception. But I think it's a mix of going out and maybe dropping 8 and rushing 3, or and then mixing it up and sending 6, right? And really giving him different looks so he doesn't know if it's going to be pressure or not. And that should cause him to hold on to the ball a tick longer. And by God, man, these cornerbacks need to get some interceptions. Winfield, Neal, the safeties need some interceptions. Dean, Davis need some interceptions. It's been far too long.
And it's crazy that the Bucs have caused so many turnovers. Their turnover differential is great. It's one of the best in the leagues. And it's not coming from anybody in the secondary. Well, it's coming from Antoine Winfield Jr., but from fumbles, not from interceptions. And that's the beauty of, well, not the lack of turnovers by the secondary, but to confusing C.J. Stroud, that's the beauty of Todd Bowles' defense, is that he gives you so many different looks. And yes, he likes to blitz and be aggressive, but we also know when Todd has something that's working, he will stick to it. Most namely the Super Bowl. And sure, there is the fear of he plays too much soft zone. CJ Stroud is able to stay in front of it. The offensive line does their job, and that's how they attack the Bucs. But I still like I would still take Todd Bowles if I'm betting on that type of matchup. I actually want to see a throwback, and by this I mean good. Take a trip down memory lane just a little bit. Back in 2019, when the Bucs played the Falcons on the road, I remember this vividly because it was the second road game I had ever covered for Pewter Report, and I was there. And at the time, the big weakness for the Atlanta Falcons was they did not have a great center up front.
Yeah.
And that whole the game was very memorable for a number of reasons. Vita Vea scored a touchdown on offense. Right. Chris Godwin had a crazy, crazy touchdown where he made an insane catch. And I think Mike Evans broke the 1,000-yard record streak again, or continued along. But anyway, one of the other big storylines of that game, Devin White had a great game because they just kept blitzing Devin White and Levante David through the A-gap time after time after time.
Matt Ryan was on the ground.
There was nothing Matt Ryan could do about it. There was nothing that Falcons could do up front about it, especially at center. So it doesn't even have to need to be Devin White and Levante David blitzing on C.J. Stroud. It can be Vita Vea just being a game wrecker, which he continues to be, leading the team with 3.5 sacks. I also think this would be a good opportunity. This is something that Josh Capo has talked about a lot, where slowing the game down a little bit for Kalijah Kancey, and not that they're asking him to do a crazy amount of stuff, but just having Kalijah hone in on one gap specifically and just shoot the gap every single time. This might be one of those matchups where you can do that with Kalijah Kancey and take advantage of a center being fourth string and someone that the Bucs can take advantage of. So they have to win that right up the middle. And whether it's Vita, whether it's the linebackers blitzing, that's something that the Bucs absolutely have to exploit because there's no better pressure. It doesn't matter if it's a rookie like C.J. Stroud or Tom Brady in his prime. You get pressure up the middle, it's unstoppable for any quarterback out there.
No, you're exactly right. And we appreciate the super chats. We got a couple more. We'll roll into them. Bucs Basement, $10 super chat. I think when we play as who we are, which is fast, physical, tough, smart, tackling ball club, a running ball club that has some play action involved, we do okay. Delusional quote from Bowles. I don't think that really describes the team. And honestly, I think Todd Bowles called an absolute crap game at Buffalo. I think it was his worst called game. I put a lot of the calls, the play calls, I think put his players in really precarious situations. If you go back to that third down that they converted where they sent the nickel blitz, which I believe was Isian. It was a quick, easy read to Stephon Diggs, who had a blocker out in front, made a guy miss and pick up the yardage. And then the Buccaneers eventually stopped the Bills, but they got the ball back with only like 21 seconds left or 19, whatever it was. Just some really curious play calls. And I just don't think that he schemed the Buffalo Bills well at all. Again, down there in the red zone, dropping Devin and Levante not having a spy for Josh Allen just invited Allen to run 13 yards up the middle. I mean, just some really, I'm going to call like I said, boneheaded calls. I mean, calls like Todd Bowles, what are you doing? Right. I mean, I just found a lot of those play calls befuddling. I think that they did way too much in terms of either rolling coverage or just playing too soft, especially at the start of the first quarter and also the start of the third quarter. Just not understanding what Todd Bowles was trying to do. And the players didn't execute it, but I don't think that the game plan going in was anything special by any means. And I think they were lucky to keep the Bills under 24 points. They made some adjustments in the second half, but they're down 14 points. And this offense is just not built to come back from being down 14 points right now. Just they're not at that level. So Todd Bowles has got to call a better game first and foremost. I thought it was easily his worst called game of the year. And, the players just, I don't know, like today even. Matt, we were talking to Carlton Davis, and he just didn't sound super confident, in what's been happening with Bowles. I think he's chomping the bit to play more man coverage. And they're just not playing it. And I know they're trying to disguise Ryan Neal and not disguise him, but cover him, right? I think Todd Bowles is doing too much to cover his weaknesses rather than playing to his team's strengths. And I think the strength is Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean playing man to man, tighter coverage, but with Devin White and Ryan Neal being liabilities in coverage, I think Bowles is trying to do them a favor and protect the weaknesses with too much zone coverage. And it's just not putting these outside corners in position to make plays.
It's all very true. And what's even more confusing is Todd has had two different quotes, both on Monday after the game, and he said it, or the day after this Monday and today as well, where he's essentially like, our vision is bad when we play zone. We have to expand our vision. We have to see it better.
Yeah.
But again, then why are you playing so much zone if you guys cannot get what you want out of it?
I said that exact quote to both Carlton Davis and Antoine Winfield, and they both looked at me like I was crazy. Like that had not been communicated by Bowles at all to two starters in his secondary. And so there's some kind of, it's funny, Todd Bowles talks about the lack of communication. I don't know, man. Like he's a big part of it. And he better come out with a much better game plan against a rookie quarterback here. And sometimes he's done a fantastic job. You go back and look at that Broncos game a couple years ago, and they destroyed, I think they played two quarterbacks in that game, right? Jeff Driscoll and Brett Rippon. They weren't rookies, but young, inexperienced quarterbacks. And the Bucs defense ate them alive. Shaq Barrett had a safety in that game. But, Brock Purdy tore this Buccaneer team a new a-hole. And, it's going to be interesting to see how they play CJ Stroud.
It's simple. Just play especially your secondary, play them to the strengths that they have. Because what you're doing, again, we talked about it, the miscommunications, the busted plays. We hear busted play at least once a week now, or
that tells me
other week.
It's too complicated. It's too complicated. You're putting too much in on a weekly basis. The guys aren't getting enough reps at it. Like you said, Matt, it's not second nature. Like have them do what they know they can do and do it well. Like you're talking about with Kalijah Cansey, like have him just attack the B gap over and over and over again. He's going to get good at it because he's going to get a lot of reps. But when you ask guys to do too much, and sometimes that's the mad scientist in Todd Bowles. And sometimes you got to use the KISS formula. Keep it simple, stupid. And just like they did in the Super Bowl, right? They said, we're going to play a bunch of cover two, take away Tyreek Hill. We're going to cover Travis Kelce with Levante David, and we're going to pressure the hell out of Patrick Mahomes with a 4-man rush. And it worked.
And they did.
Yeah.
And they didn't allow a touchdown.
Yep.
Anyway, let's get to more super chats. This one, a $5 super chat from Matt Bucs fan. Thank you, Matt. Great name. Thus far, what's your take on this offensive scheme and Canales? Funky, predictable, creative, etc. Curious what you guys are seeing. Really great question, Matt. Yeah. I think funky could be one of the right words. I wouldn't say predictable just yet. I think sometimes they run it too much on first down, but the disparagement of throwing it versus running it, I think, is good. That's something we complained a lot about last season.
Last 2 weeks. I get where Canales is going, don't you, Matt?
What do you mean?
Like, well, just in terms of, hey, we're going to throw it, right?
Yes,
we're going to pass it more,
then
then
we're
we're
going
going to
to
throw it
set up the
3-to-1
run.
ratio.
And if they're having more success with the run, I think we'd see even more creativity. Maybe not
Yeah.
creativity, but more just different elements of his offense. Like we've seen some end arounds week in and week out, except for on Thursday. Chris Godwin threw a pass. So we're seeing different things week by week. And again, guys have gotten open. Baker hasn't always made the throw.
Right.
So you can't say, oh, Canales isn't calling this or isn't calling that.
Yeah.
So I think funky is the right word. Funky with a taste of creative.
I think he needs to do more end arounds. I think 2 or 3 per game with different people, right? With Godwin, with Evans, with Palmer, with DT, right?
Yeah.
And I think those are plays that when they do run them, they work. And it's a little maddening why you don't go back to something that works. Didn't have to be the exact same formation with the exact same guy getting the ball, but run it left with DT, right? Going in motion. And then in the first quarter and third quarter, come out and run it right to left, other way with Trey Palmer, right? I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more screens. It was great screen. Stinney out in front. He's more mobile than Filer. Yep. It worked. Go back to it, right? I mean, it's, sometimes the best friend that a defensive player can have is the offensive coordinator on the other side who stops doing what's working, right? I mean, that helps you out. So I'd like to see more of that. I appreciate what Dave is doing. I think he can be more creative and use more plays that work more often, if that makes sense. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no question about it.
Redfish here with the $4.99 super chat. Appreciate that. SR with 28 years of experience. What's your take on the locker room? Confident, doubting, grumbling, expecting to win, or worried? Thanks. Interesting vibe today, Matt, that I got in the locker room. The rookies are the rookies, so it's hard to take their pulse. Like we saw Yaya Diaby got his first sack, which we talked about today, he and I, and it was a trophy sack, right? Warren Sapp used to tell me all the time, sacks are not created equal, right? Like a Brett Favre sack is worth more than a Dante Culpepper sack, right? Or, a Scott Mitchell sack back in the day. Yeah, exactly, right. Because Brett Favre's a better player, he's harder to bring down, etc. Josh Allen, for your first sack, that's a trophy sack. I asked Shaq Barrett today, I said, who was your first sack? And he said, Matt Stafford back when he was with the Lions. He's like, it was a strip sack.
That's pretty cool. And of course, there's a strip sack from Shaq.
Right. So, at the same time, Yaya, he hurt his hand.
He did.
And I think we'll probably see that on the injury report when it comes out. But yeah, he's got an injured hand. And he said that I guess he hit the ground, and not sure if it was his wrist or his thumb or whatever, but it was wrapped today. He's still going to play. But yeah, he's like, that happened on my sack play. But the veterans, talking to Carlton Davis, talking to Antoine Winfield, talking to Shaq Barrett a little bit, they're kind of feeling a little bit of pressure here. Like they got to win. They got to win this week. That's why we call this a must-win game. The losing has to stop now. This is a beatable team. You have to win the winnable games. And Matt, I really believe that if they lose this game, we could start to see some division, and this thing could spiral a little bit. I'm not saying that wheels are going to fall off the wagon, because if they win against the Titans, at some point in time, you take that exhale and you breathe out. Okay, we finally got to win. Finally got off the losing streak. But it feels like that needs to happen this week.
And that's why you almost wish that the trade deadline was a week or two later, because if the Bucs lose again and the week after that, you might start truly becoming sellers this year, so that you could end up with a better draft pick. And I think the problem when you talk about the concern of division for this team is one of the biggest reasons, I should say, is because it's very clear the offense is not holding up their end of the bargain. They've struggled week in and week out.
Yeah.
This defense, with the exception of the Buffalo game, are doing everything they can to keep the game close, and then the offense just can't put it together. And then on the second side of that, what we talked about earlier with as great as the defense has been, Bowles is calling certain things that is stopping this great defense from being a top 3 defense in the league, with just how he's running the secondary at the moment, and how 17 points could turn into 10 points because of the busted coverages and everything else in between. So there's kind of two clear-cut culprits, and I think that can lead for more of a divide versus like the offense itself. You wouldn't have a divide because like this guy's going off sides, Baker's missing this throw, this wide receiver's not getting open, this wide receiver is getting a holding penalty.
Yeah.
But from a macro of the whole team, there's clearly two culprits in this.
Yeah, you're right. And we have some comments here about the defense, and it's like I think they've become so predictable, and why they're really struggling to get off the field on third downs, Matt, is and why they've got the worst third down percentage on defense, and why they're better when it comes to red zone, when it comes to scoring defense, because there's not as much ground to cover, right? It's a truncated area that the offense has to either get a first down inside the 10-yard line or kick a field goal if they don't get it another change of downs there. But they're calling way too much cover 3 with spot dropping their linebackers. They're spot dropping into zone Levante David and the Devin White, who's a liability in coverage. And when you do that so much, you're putting so much pressure on those linebackers to try to cover a short area, because if it's 3rd and 5, a 6-yard pass, boom, it's a first down. And so Devin White and Levante David, they're not typically letting a lot of guys in their area, in their zone, get a lot of yards after catch. But Matt, it's been enough, right? If it's 3rd and 6, they'll give up a 7-yard pass to a tight end, or a slot receiver, whatever that's coming in their zone, and it's first down. If it's, if it's 3rd and 4, they're giving up a 5-yard pass, just short little dink and dunk underneath type stuff, because all they're doing is they're just spot dropping right in the middle of the field. And the quarterback's getting the ball out because it's like, I need 5 yards. And I'm going to throw a 5-yard pass. I'm going to pick up a first down. The pass rush isn't good enough to get there within a second and a half. Not many pass rushes are. But when you're playing that soft as zone coverage, you're just inviting third down completions. I need 6 yards. It's 3rd and 5. Boom, there's 6 yards.
That'll make it all very interesting when you make the picks this week for the Bucs Texans game, whether it's on Pewter Picks and Props, so we can check out this Friday, but it will be done on Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you use that promo code Pewter, Pewter, get a first deposit bonus when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy with that promo code Pewter. Their pick'em games are so much fun to do in the season. You pick at least 2 players, 1 from each team. You can go all the way up to 5 and win all the way up to 20 times your money. You're just choosing certain things like over or higher or lower on receiving yards for a player, or passing yards, or maybe it's fantasy points, or will this quarterback throw an interception? So they have a ton of different options for you to choose from. They have it for the NFL, NBA, NHL, all the big major sports, some golf as well. So maybe you're watching a game that you have it on and you don't have as much interest. Bam, just place a pick or 2 on Underdog Fantasy and get that much more invested in it. Once again, use that promo code Pewter, Pewter, get a first deposit bonus with Underdog Fantasy. And speaking of someone that tails my picks over at Pewter Picks and Props, it is our main man, Paul, a.k.a. Florida Dreamhouse. Thanks for $5 super chat. And he says, Matty Diamonds hit the nail on the head. A hurry-up offense could really make a difference, but Canales, Baker, and the offense need to clean things up as well. Yeah, it very much goes hand in hand. I said this the other day. I'm not buying that just because they go up tempo, that means all of a sudden these penalties are going to continue to happen, because a lot of these penalties are happening when they're not going up tempo.
Yeah.
So this offense needs a spark. I think up tempo is the way to go about it. But even if they don't, at some point or another, they are going to have to.
I'd love to see them start each half in up tempo. Like start the game right, just coming out up tempo.
Because they're starting slow too.
Exactly. So hurry it up.
Yeah.
And and try something, right? Because what you're doing is not working right now, and it's kind of discouraging. The fact that the Buccaneers only have 3 points total on all of their 7 first possessions of the season, right? I mean, you're talking about the first possession every game.
Yep.
They've scored 3 points. That was against the Bears in week 2. It's been a long time since the Bucs have gotten a lead early in the game on their first drive. So why not start fast? But listen, the offensive line too. Offensive line did an okay job against the Bills, but you cannot have 20 yards worth of penalties on 4 false starts, 3 of which were Luke Gedeke, 1 of which was Tristan Wirfs. Right, that's 20 penalty yards before the ball's even snapped. Then you got a Cody Mauch kind of questionable holding call that negated a 42-yard completion to Mike Evans on that. Great scheme. He's wide open. Great throw by Baker. Hit him. Got some yards after catch. The problem with that Cody Mauch play is if you take a guy to the ground and you do it in a true pancake style where he's going like at the line of scrimmage or backwards, the refs typically won't call that. But when he penetrates the line of scrimmage and you take him down behind the line of scrimmage, even if it's a legitimate pancake, you're being more susceptible to those holding calls, because if a ref will see it out of the corner of his eye, he's got to think, oh, this guy was about to get a sack and Cody Mauch grabbed him and took him down. And maybe that was the case, maybe it wasn't. But those are the kind of pancakes that are going to get flagged more often than not, rather than if you get a guy at the line of scrimmage and bury him there, or you're in the run game and you bury him, and he falls past the line of scrimmage. But those ones in the backfield, those are going to get called more often than not, even if they're kind of a questionable call. But one thing that's not in question, Matt, is when it comes to real estate choices, when you're looking for a go-to guy, if you're looking for a guy that's not going to get flagged, you're looking for a guy that's going to make the play and get you into the end zone with your real estate purchase, it is Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group, the official realtors of Pewter Report. The Eric Gross Group has done hundreds of transactions in this crazy real estate market. They have all the experience that you need, whether it's buying a home in Florida, whether it's selling it. And listen, they can even help you buy a house out of state if you have to leave the lovely state of Florida, or if you're moving to the great state of Florida, they can help you sell your home where you are, because they're part of the eXp Realty Group with over 85,000 agents in their network. So let them be on your team and give you the winning edge. Their clients are not just transactions, they're lifelong friendships. Why wouldn't you want to call a guy in Eric that you would have something in common with right off the bat, being Tampa Bay fans and Pewter Report readers? So that's what I'm asking you to do. Go to housesinfla.com. Check out the Eric Gross Group website, housesinfla.com. View their inventory. It's a great website, easy to navigate. Find them on Facebook and Instagram, Eric Gross Group. They have their listings there, their open houses as well. No matter where you are in your home ownership journey, you're going to feel welcome with the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report.
We got another super chat from Paul, a.k.a. Florida Dreamhouse. Thanks again for the $5 super chat. Says, let's chill on the Trask talk, excuse me. He's not the answer this season. Finally, props to Matty Diamonds, as he made me $150 last week. Some heroes don't wear capes.
Man.
Paul, that makes me so happy to hear that you are winning money with my picks. I won some money too, by the way, thanks to that. Yeah, 2-0 on my Bucs picks last week, 11-3 on the season. I'm up on my player props. I'm up on my NFL picks as well. So check out Pewter Picks and Props again coming up this Friday. And Paul, congrats on winning 150.
Awesome.
That is so awesome. Glad to see
Paul,
you win it.
And Matt, and anybody that wins money with those awesome Pewter Picks and Props that Matt throws out there every Friday on Pewter Report TV, I advise you to do one thing. Call our good friends at Muni Financial and invest it wisely.
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you? Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it. All right. Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
That's right. Managing your family's wealth means more to Muni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. With 40 years of experience, let Muni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Do what I've done. I've got most of my investments with the Muni Financial. I trust them. I ask that you give them a call at 1-800-868-6864. That's 1-800-868-6864. Talk with an Muni Financial representative and have them do a second opinion on your financial planning and make sure that you have your ducks in a row. You can visit them on the web at immuni.com. They can help you whether you're in the state of Florida or across the country. Immuni.com. And Matt, tomorrow we're going to be right back here at 4 o'clock with another big show. We've got when I say a big show, it's because Vita Vea is being featured on the graphic here. Let me pull it up. Here we go. Big old Vita Vea. The Bucs are going to be facing their first rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud. Then they got another one the next week in Will Levis with the Tennessee Titans. So Matt's going to be talking about that tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Make sure you join us here on the Pewter Report podcast for that podcast. And Matt, what else can Buck fans do?
We would love it if everyone followed us on our social media, on X, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. We are at Pewter Report. That's PEWTERREPORT. And then, of course, our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. We got the podcast 4 times a week. We put out various videos from press conferences, shorts as well. Scott has his Pewter Pulse. I have Pewter Picks and Props. We got the Game Day show every game day, of course. Tons of content on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And also leave a comment. That helps a lot with growing our audience on Pewter Report TV. And we love the Pewter people. We'd love it if you guys can do that to help us out. Yep. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. So until then, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.